All right, welcome to the Rotated Views podcast. This is episode number 12. I am your host, Jimmylee Velez. I'm here with Gabe, Goose, Heck, and Manny. That's right, we have the entire crew here. And then this episode is titled Overcoming Mediocrity, right? So in this episode, we'll discuss setting high expectations, pushing our kids to be greater, settling for an average life, the path of least resistance, and the mediocrity mindset. We wrap up the episode with quotes from Peter Scott and the late great Nelson Mandela. All right, so how we start off our podcast, if you're new, welcome, thank you. Don't forget to download and subscribe. We have a new podcast every Tuesday morning for your listening pleasure, and we kick off our podcast with stories. So the first story is kind of a switch up of things, but it's a short blog post by lifehacker.com by Joshua Rivera, and it was titled Being Realistic in the Most Commonly Traveled Road to Mediocrity. That is a tough title. So I'll jump right in. When talking about goals or dreams of any sort, you've probably heard someone say something like, let's be realistic. Maybe you've even uttered it to yourself. But as the Will Smith quote reminds us, being realistic isn't doing any favors for your ambitions. So Will Smith said, being realistic comes with a sense of security, comfort, and a natural inclination to find the path of least resistance, discouraging risks. It may be scary, but sometimes you need that special kind of crazy to think that, hey, maybe you can actually accomplish what you've dreamed of.
Nice.
That is an intense, first of all, that title's intense by Joshua Rivera. That's an intense quote by Will Smith, who's known for giving tips on law of attraction and things like that. He's a superstar, class A celebrity. But before we get the opinion on that, I think to serve this all justice, I wanted to give you guys the Webster's Dictionary definition of mediocrity. And it goes like this: the quality of something that is not very good, the quality or state of being mediocre. Also, a person who does not have the special ability to do something well. So going back, now that we know the definition of mediocrity, what Will Smith said and what he's talking about mediocrity, I when I read it, it came off to me as something when he speaks about the path of least resistance. Mediocrity then gives the definition of kind of a comfort. It's like your comfort. You're just doing it because it's comfortable. Yeah. Your average person is doing these kinds of things where it's not really something that's, looked up to, or people say like, wow, that's, an amazing accomplishment. It's just average. You're just doing your job. You're just get by kind of thing.
I kind of take that, like, for me, almost not as an insult, but like a person who does not have special ability to do something well. To me, it's like,
I know, when I read that definition, I'm like, wow.
Holy crap. Like, people say, oh, it's just mediocrity. It's okay. It's mediocre. I do whatever I do just to pass. But when you read a definition, it's like almost like kind of insulting in a way.
Absolutely, it's insulting. Well, anyone who's out there trying to get something or trying to really, I guess, push the limits and push the envelope and break barriers and really demolish the mold and I don't even know how to put it, but just something to do something that was never done, changing the family tree, so to speak. That's like, holy smokes, I guess we're on the other spectrum then, because the average person is just doing what is required. Yeah. That's it, right? That's a C. That's a C.
Yeah.
Just to get by.
That's just getting by. Now, is average a C or B? I don't know.
Nowadays, yeah, what is it?
I don't know, but dude, I think in certain colleges a D is passing, so who knows now?
Well, yeah, it's passing, but it's not average.
Right, so average is C?
C is right.
Yeah,
the middle line.
C is average.
C?
Okay.
C.
So you're doing a whole lot of just C. Who, and I'm just trying to think, who in God's name would want, like, that is all you're doing is basically settling, doing nothing of significance, and you are setting out to just be average. Now, some people might not be setting out to do that, and that's just so happen where they land. But if that is a decision that you're making, that's kind of bizarre.
Yeah, that's a detriment to your own well-being, mental well-being, if anything. Because like if you feel like you can accomplish more than what you already have done, I mean, seems like you have horrible like self-esteem or something that goes along with that.
Yeah.
Or standards. Like you don't really have high standards for yourself. So basically, I guess the same thing with self-esteem.
Yeah, exactly. When you think of mediocrity, man, what do you think of?
I think to myself, it's average, right? Mediocrity is looked at as average, but how many people are in that who aren't average? You know, we talk about the 1%ers, the 2%ers. Yeah. You know, it's not necessarily not horrible to say I live an average life. If that's all you want, that's all you get. That's okay. Yeah, but I think in certain aspects, you know, you're not really worth your soul if you're not chasing something, and it could be as insignificant as chasing a video game record or whatever the case is. But I don't know, the quality of something that is not very good, that hurts, man.
I know.
Yeah.
Like mediocre, like, you know, I drive a mediocre car. It gets me point A to point B.
Well, yeah, that could be different.
To you, though.
Right,
That's
to me, right.
to you.
You're absolutely right. It's all a matter
that's what I was gonna say.
of perspective. But that, I don't know, man. That's the quality of something that is not very good. I've read it like 4 times. Like, man, that hurts.
Dude,
It stings the soul.
Seems like a harsh way to say it, but
Yeah, it is. It's like that harsh reality kind of thing.
Yeah, there are different standards to it, though. It's like you could be good at one thing and mediocre at something else. Doesn't mean your life is mediocre.
Absolutely.
But I mean, I think everybody who doesn't like what they do is mediocre at it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Mikey, I would call you kind of a master barber or a kind of genius with the scissors, but you kind of love what you do, right?
Yeah,
There's a reason why you're not mediocre. So, you know, finding that thing that gets you past being mediocre, I guess, is what everybody strives for.
Getting about outside your comfort zone to do something.
Sure, but it's easier to get outside your comfort zone and not be mediocre if you're chasing something that you like or you love, I guess, or something that kind of gets the juices flowing.
Yeah, I mean, mediocre. And okay, so mediocre is the average, all right. And then so coming from my perspective, I agree with you. Not that there's per se anything actually wrong with being mediocre. My thing is if you're trying to live a life of excellence, if you're trying to live a life that's when you're trying to become the best version of yourself, how I always talk about, mediocre is definitely not something that you're striving for. Now, that's something that we all hit, that we all sit at one point in our life, at certain levels, in certain areas. But I don't know if that's anyone's goal, to be honest with you. It could be, but I know it's not my goal, and I think it's there for a purpose, though, because then it's like they say, you don't know where you're going if you don't know where you're at.
Yep.
So if you can measure yourself up against the average of, let's just say, Americans, and I know there's kids out there who are taking, I'm headed into my master's program, so I had to take, I'm headed into my master's program for my MBA, and I had to take the exam called the GMAT. And for the high schoolers going into college, it's the SATs. They give you like an average, like what's the average score that, you know, the average person taking this exam gets. Immediately, once I see that, I throw on like more points, and that's my goal. You know what I'm saying? So it is a place to, I guess, like a marker.
Because like you're talking about like the standardized tests. Like I always thought those were terrible in terms of setting a bar in terms of stuff like that. Because I'm all those like standardized tests like this, I forget what they called them, like in elementary school and stuff like that, whatever they were. I always scored terribly on those just because like it was such a time restriction. You felt like you never had enough time to actually accomplish what you're trying to answer in those questions and stuff. And I was always quote unquote rated below average because it always worked out terrible. But it's like my regular classes, I was totally fine. I was always like, I guess regularly above average. So like even stuff like that, like those kinds of tests, like even though it's quote unquote a standardized test, it doesn't really set the standard if you're not that type of test taker. Like you don't do certain things well. Right. If you don't take that type of test well, then you're going to be quote unquote below average. You're going to look like you're mediocre in comparison, even if outside your other quote unquote intelligences are high above average than most other people are.
So then you're touching on something else. Mediocrity is kind of a self-imposed thing, right? I mean, what might look mediocre to some people could be your great or your best. that's kind of a self-imposed thing. Because if you don't have all the tools to be great, you know what I mean? You can,
Absolutely.
in your mind, you're awesome, you're fantastic,
Yeah.
but people look at you and you still might be mediocre. So a lot of it is actually kind of self-imposed on yourself. So
Yeah, I mean, well, that leads into the question, in your opinion, is mediocrity a mindset or an outcome, or is it both?
Well, it could be both.
Well,
from the outsider looking in, that's you're looked at as, I don't know, I would look at it as mediocre, I guess. But if you're looking at from, I don't know,
because I don't think anyone like puts himself in a position who's like, oh, I want to do mediocrity, whatever work. People try to do their high potential, and the result might come out mediocrity,
Right.
like in the middle or whatever. But it's not like that's the end result. It's not what you're set, where your mindset is at. So it could be, and like you said, what's mediocrity? Like where is that middle ground?
Yeah, so what you guys are saying is we got the definition from Merriam-Webster's dictionary, but the definition also comes from each individual and exactly how they define what's great, what's terrible, and what's mediocrity, right?
Yeah.
Or what's mediocre.
And I guess their own perceptions of what's going on too.
Right, exactly. Because just like the example where I follow a couple, investors, what their level of income is to them is great, and to me that's like, holy smokes, that's like astronomical.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like these
Right.
guys are pulling in like $12 million a year, and you're like, dude, you make $1 million a month. To me, that's a whole nother thing. But then when they're in their circle of influence, that's their average.
Right.
They're mediocre.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I guess it is a mindset, I think. I think it's a mindset and an outcome. I think it's both, because I think it's how we really define it. The brutal definition Merriam-Webster gives us is kind of like how you take it. Because I would, the way they describe it's almost hilarious, but it's true in a raw sense. But it depends.
black and white is what this is.
Yeah. There's no, and that's the thing with mediocrity. You have to have that comparison, because you're saying, who are you comparing it to?
Yeah.
If you come to the United States, as a country that we reside at, and you say, what's the average median income, household income, it's a number. And then if you go to Europe or Asia, it's another number, whatever it is. Obviously, too, we're talking monetary stuff, so it's going to be different, number-wise. But if you break it down, I'm sure it's different. I'm not sure what the exact numbers are. And to them, that's their average. To us, that's our average. Nothing, who's to say right or wrong, but that's just kind of the scale that we rate ourselves against.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, okay, so in our circle of influence currently, right, it's kind of like, if such and such has a certain income and such has a house, lives in a certain neighborhood, has a certain car, they say you are the average of the 5 people you most engage yourself with, like, or hang around with. That's the average. That's mediocre then, because you're just the average, right?
Yeah.
So it really is how you look at stuff. And none of us here are millionaires. We're all doing pretty well for ourselves, but we're not millionaires. So, okay, so take our group and then throw us next to the millionaire circle, where there are a bunch of millionaires, right? And how they interact with each other, how they conduct themselves is totally different, obviously, because their level of awareness when it comes to earning an income is totally different.
Right.
And then take that group and compare them to a circle of billionaires, where you see Warren Buffett and Bill Gates and them, these guys, and Oprah Winfrey hanging out together, exchanging ideas and investing in each other's businesses. Their average is a totally different definition. It takes a totally different, outlook on life in general.
Yeah.
True. I mean, put us next to people who are from a poorer area or just aren't, don't have as much income. And we might, what we aspire to be, as far as the millionaires are concerned, people could look at us in that same fashion and be like, man, they got it all together.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we're like, it's okay, but we want more. So, like you said, I think it is more of a mindset. Partially an outcome, but I think more of a mindset
and
as
what
well.
people actually perceive it as. Like, you might think that, like, you're doing something well. You think you're doing something good at it, and then someone comes in and is like, it was all right.
Right.
And it's like kind of crush on you.
Yeah,
you're all
yeah.
right. I mean, and in your head, you're like, damn, dude, I like really kicked it, like I nailed it right to the T, or whatever project just say you're working on, and you have some random person come in like, yeah, that's all right.
Yeah.
Bust your butt for 12 hours, but that's all right. So that's
now,
like, to them, they see it as mediocre, and you thought you did to the top.
Yeah.
So it's.
Do you guys think that's something that we get from like our parents? It's something that we kind of inherit, like a thought process. I mean, obviously not because we all make our own decisions and, you know, our career paths and stuff like that. Obviously, we can change, you know, the family tree, so to speak, at any moment for making a huge decision, hard work and all that stuff. But our main, I guess, core values when it comes to what's mediocre, do you guys think that stems from, you know, listening to our parents or being around them? And
Sure.
their friends?
Yeah, I think it's more experience than anything. I think there's certain things in life that trigger certain emotions, and you know something might have happened to you at one time, and you were like, well, that'll never happen to me, and that's kind of a mental note, and it's ingrained in your mind. So I think it's more of experiences. I don't think when people say drive and dedication, I don't know. You don't get that. That's not. I mean, maybe some of that is given to you genetically or kind of given to you inherently. But I think there's experiences that kind of mold who you become.
Actually, kind of going off because it kind of is sort of like environment and stuff like that too. Like
Sure.
like you said, experience and stuff you dealt with. Because like for me personally, like stuff like that, I kind of gauge how well I'm doing or whatever it is. I mean, me personally, I don't talk about it much, but I mean, I do deal with certain anxieties and stuff like that kind of I feel like do hold me back in terms of even stuff that I do know I'm good at. I still even breaking through like the initial like I have social anxieties and like social awkwardness and stuff like that does, and at least initially, even when I break through that, like that when I was like, oh, I know I've done something great, that kind of on the second hand, like once I like realize, okay, I can do it now, then my mind starts reeling, and then it becomes like a weird backward step, almost like to almost kind of prevent me from keep going forward. It's like it's a weird thing. It doesn't make any sense.
Wow. That's super interesting. Do you think something is holding you back, and then you just kind of said you don't know what it is?
Because it really doesn't make any sense. Because like I said, even the stuff that I do know I'm good at, that like people even compliment me on, like some of like certain, like I'm not trying to like pat myself on the back, but it's like, but once I get to that point, it's weird that like then I start overthinking it. Then I start like it becomes even like almost like a detriment to myself that I really start like second guessing everything.
What are you second guessing?
It varies, and like I said, like there's social stuff that kind of comes into play.
Right.
There's like certain things, like even just like
It's the confidence, or
What?
not.
Are you afraid to be not good at it? Like, oh my god, I set the bar so high, and then all of a sudden, like, I don't know if I could do it again, type
To
thing.
some extent, I do think actually parts of that too. There's like that maybe I can't withhold that same
Right, that same
so
standard.
momentum that that I did to begin with. That like
Right.
it starts like playing mind games with yourself is what it is. And then like it so then I feel like I'm leaning back more into like the below average type area, even though like even I still get told, you know, I'm still doing, you know, a good job, whatever, blah, 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 whatever it is. But it's like it just like your mind plays with yourself, and then like that's when you start like I said, perception or just like random stuff. It's just like it's playing with you. If that makes any sense.
There's something that I heard one, and obviously it's a you know a subject or a topic that's talked about a lot in the personal development arena. It's called the fear of success. And it sounds very broad when you say that, because a lot of times when people say success, they associate that with like a monetary accomplishment. But exactly what Gabe's talking about, kind of overcoming the fears of social interactions. It's almost like when you accomplish it, it's a fear of success. So then you kind of retract and you go back to your quote unquote comfort zone.
Yeah, it's like I have to kind of get back in that comfort zone so I can like kind of go through again to kind of like get to the point where I was initially. But it's like it keeps going like this back and forth thing where I feel like I almost feel like I'm plateauing amongst myself, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and then I also think that this also goes back to when we're talking about goal setting and all these other kinds of things. It's knowing you have this awareness though where you are, so then you know when you're breaking that barrier. Then all of a sudden you start to retract for whatever reason it is, whether it's a comfort thing or something that you have not yet experienced. Or you're just not. I think it's just a comfort thing.
Yeah.
There's just this weird thing that happens where. I don't know if it's like an instinct or whatever it is. I think it is, and here's why. We have there's all these like chemicals and stuff flying in our systems when we approach or we're hit with something that we're not naturally exposed to. It's a fear thing. It's like a fight or flight kind of thing.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, so then all of a sudden you kind of like, your awareness is totally different because it's something that you've never experienced, or you almost, your body, and this might sound weird, but your body feels threatened for whatever reason that is. And so you start to act weird and different or whatever, and then you go back to your comfort zone. Yeah. It's interesting. So do you guys think, going back to, the dad life thing and talking about mediocrity, is that something we can overcome, and do we push our kids to pass that barrier for whatever we define mediocre circumstances? And also, what's pushing your kid, too much?
Some kids have it seeing a coach or being around my son and some of the different players, different ages, 7 and 8 right now. Some kids are inherently just more competitive.
Yeah.
And like they don't even know, they just get angry about it, right? They just get angry, where my son is more like, whatever. Yeah, I gave it hell, and that's kind of what it is, and you're cool. But there's some kids you can just see, I mean, they get angry, or if they mess up, they take it really hard. So to me, that's kind of, I guess, retract my prior statement. I guess it is just kind of in you a little bit.
Right.
But for me, in my situation, I try to push my kid, and I tell him, to answer the question again, is it's a mindset. It's a mindset, because a lot of times, the shoulders will roll down, the body language will be horrible. He's like, I can't do it, and it's just like, no, it's up here, it's in your head. So a lot of it, I think, is a mindset, and I don't know if you can push. I don't know where the limit is for your kid.
Yeah.
I don't think as a parent you kind of know. From the outside looking in,
yeah, you
can say one thing, but it is it's kind of a bizarre, I guess, a very, very sensitive balance, because you never know what too hard is, especially when you're in the heat of the moment. You never know.
I mean, I see it two different ways now, because like I know my oldest daughter is she's like into like this. She takes dance classes, and we got a trampoline out back, and she's constantly like doing flips and doing all this stuff, and when she can't do it, she's trying over and over and over again. Like my wife nor I, we don't push her to do any of this stuff. She does it on her own. But at one point, before she was doing all this dance stuff, like she would go out and try stuff. I can't do it. Oh, I can't do it. Like she'll get frustrated with herself. So right now I see my younger child, Lainey, I can't do it. And she gets a little frustrated, but then it's like, you got to keep going. You got to keep going. So I hope that like she sees her older sister just continuously trying to do those flips, or continuously like to do whatever it is that they're doing. Because I've seen progression coming with Bella, just doing it herself. Like nobody's really pushing her to do it. She's pushing herself. I guess she gives herself her own self motivation to I guess master these flips. It's crazy though, because I seen where she started from, and I never said I personally don't say much about it because I don't know much about flips. I don't know there's always proper like
verbiage,
ways to flip and do all this stuff. So she does it on her own, and she's constantly watching videos on YouTube and doing all that stuff. So she's got it pretty good. So I mean,
but if you never said anything, where do they get it from then? Like they must have had an experience. Either somebody laughed at them or made a comment or something that frustrated them, and all of a sudden it's an internal thing. Now the mindset has kind of shifted to be like, oh, that won't happen again.
Could be, or they saw someone do it so good that they wanted to emulate that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what Bella's, my oldest daughter, I think that's where she's at, is like she sees somebody's doing it, she's like, I can do that. I guess that's like stuck in her head that I can do that. Like it doesn't seem like rocket science, and boom, and she just goes and goes until she can do it. Yeah,
which is still kind of Manny is saying though,
Yeah.
because that is a mentality though. So then where are you getting that competitive edge from? Mm-hmm. And this goes outside of sports, because I've had interactions with friends who would get literally ticked off if they got a B in school, and they're known for getting A's. So it was even them having an aggression towards accomplishing whatever greatness is to them.
Yeah.
Which full circle goes back to the definition of mediocrity really is up to the individual.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Or not just mediocrity, greatness.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. That's it's kind of weird. It's a fine line too. You don't know when it happens.
And I think naturally as parents, we are our children's first coaches. And we're there even when it takes the first steps. We don't realize it when they're taking, like when James was taking his first steps. I had like this just excitement to see him do it and was pushing. But at the same time, you could tell he kind of wanted to do it. He's like all wobbly, standing up or whatever. And when he took his first steps, I just so happened to be videotaping, recording, his first couple steps. And I think it was like 2 or 3, maybe 4 steps that he took, where before that he'll take one and just plop down. And then there's the infamous question, what makes a child fall off of a bike or fall from trying to walk and get up 100 times versus the adult who fails in life and never tries again. So then you kind of, and I'm not sure if it's a coaching thing. Yeah. I'm not sure if there's, their circle of influence is different where they're like, dude, you can do it. Come on, just get up and try again, as if we're coaching our children learning how to walk. But as a coach, being a dad coach, not as a coach in any teams or anything like that, I think it's exploiting the potential that the child has, that that is within them. You can walk. Like, I know you can walk. So it's just that confidence that I'm bringing on him. Like, Papi, you can walk. I know you can walk. Come on, get up. Let's go. Yeah. And it's that kind of encouragement that they're feeding off of as well. I'm not saying that's the total thing. Obviously, there's natural, things going on there. But there's definitely something to be said about early childhood coaching when we're talking about parenting with this stuff.
Yeah, and it's all like on the child's interest or ambition in the situation. Like Ava played softball this year, and I learned to know that's not her sport. Like, yeah. And as much as I tried, I practiced with her, and I threw the ball. She's throwing the ball like totally different way, and when she went up to bat for the first few times, she didn't know what side of the plate to stand on. It was frustrating for me, and I'm practicing with her.
Yeah.
And then she does dance as well. Watching her do this dance, she just had a recital, and she's like killing it. Naturally does it, and she's always, like Heck was saying with his daughter, she's out on the trampoline doing her own. I see her dancing and prancing around the house. I didn't get it till I saw the recital scene all put together, and she was killing it. Like, she has like moves, and and that's her thing. Yeah. But meanwhile, I was trying to press her to do the softball thing, and it's not her natural talent. And I was like going. I finally like gave back, and like her last few games, I just let her. I didn't even say anything because I know that's not her thing.
Yeah.
If she wants to try and keep going, she could do it. But I don't see her like doing that on her own time. Like, oh, Dad, take me to the batting cages, or Dad, like that's not her thing. Her thing is like put on some music, let me dance, let me feel this beat, let me go. So like there's certain things where you gotta kind of like read them and feel them out. So you can back off if you're pressing on something that's not even into their interest.
Yeah.
You might be kind of wasting your time on that thing and help them find their niche.
Yeah.
And then just keep boosting them up on that one specific, like, one thing.
Yeah. So it's kind of like encouraging them at the same time, pushing them, but looking for the signs.
Yeah, exactly.
It's totally off dad life, the segment, but we went to a family, I guess, gathering we have at a tailgate for the Phillies game, and talking about that mindset. We're playing cornhole's a game, right?
Yeah.
And
or bago,
or bago, whatever you call it. You throw, yeah, the beanbag game. There were some people who are a little more competitive than others, and Jim and my Uncle Dave, where I did it kind of on purpose. Like, Brian, let's play, but I want Uncle Dave, and I wanted them on the same side. The competitive nature in which these two guys, screaming to the point where some people were turning around.
Yes.
Like, where does that come from? Obviously, it came down from somewhere, because when you screamed, you both sounded exactly the same. And I was like, whoa, come on, man. And meanwhile, me and Brian are on the other side kind of giggling. And I'm like, this means absolutely nothing. Nothing's riding on it. But you would have thought it was Game 7 and they were trying to win one for Cleveland, the way they went at it. What is that? What is it? Something that what is it? Is it a mindset? You make yourself like that, or it just comes out of you? You have no idea, can't control it? What is it?
At this level, for me, once everything turned around for me in 2006, I know this is going totally back, but in 2006, I was introduced to the personal development area, and it was really working on myself. And one of the things that always stuck with me was stated, how you do one thing is how you do everything. Yeah. And every time, that literally pops up in my head every single day from the almost 10 years ago when I heard that. It was August of 2006. and we're 2 months shy from that. So it's almost 10 years ago when I first heard that statement, and I've literally lived by it. So it's not that it's just a bago game, a cornhole game. To me, it's beyond that. It's I want to win at everything I'm doing. Now, there's lines. I don't cross certain lines. I don't gamble. I don't do none of that stuff. It's literally for my own, like, I just want to be better. And obviously the competitiveness just naturally starts coming out, or whatever it is, and the smack talking. So then it gets you more invested into what you're doing. It gets you more excited. It makes the game more interesting. I was also on the level of thinking where I'm going to be here anyway. I'm going to be playing this game anyway. We're all here having, a good time anyway. Now, I try not to let the competition ruin my time either, because there's also people who it takes to a level where it's just like, dude, you just took a family-friendly thing to... I like the smack talking where we're cracking up afterwards. Like, oh, you got me, all right, I'll get you. Because then we smoked them, right, in that first round, and then they came back and spanked us. And it was fun trash talking, though, going back and forth. And then we just all sat down, had some, cooked on the grill, threw a couple back, and we're having fun.
Right.
My thing is, we're going to be here anyway. Make the most of it. Squeeze every little bit out of it. That's my mentality. So... if I'm going to just throw like a lackadaisical effort into even bago or cornhole or whatever they call it. Yeah, what's the point? Like, you're going to hear, go win, try to win. That's how simple it is for me. It's not, there's no scientific thing for me. I'm like, I'm trying to win. I want some W's.
So that one phrase 10 years ago kind of molded who you've made yourself today.
Yeah. I said, because it's true, because what happens when someone says that, it puts value on my time. We talk about this all the time. Time is your most valuable asset. So I value my time. So if even when I'm just hanging out, tailgating with my family, I want to get the most out of that. We're here for almost 5 to 8 hours, whatever it is. Let's have all the fun we could possibly have, whether it's being competitive, whether it's watching the actual game, whether it's winning at something else, it doesn't matter. Or just cracking jokes. To me, it's like, dude, you're going to be here. That's when everything changed for me at college. I'm like, dude, I'm going to put in 4 years. Let's get the best 4 years possible.
So from that point on, sounds like everything that you do is definitely not mediocre.
No, once I heard that, my definition, my outlook on life, my definition on how I look at everything is just go beast mode or nothing. Just go all out. Dude, my thing is, if you're a healthy individual, right, you have everything going for you. There's nothing holding you back. Even if it's just a game of bago, what do you do? Like, people are like, oh, you're just relaxing. Like, dude, I find like the stuff that's just chill and laid back. My relaxation goes back to definition. My relaxation was us watching the game. Whereas when we're just tailgating, someone's relaxation is just sitting in a chair and having a conversation with someone. There's no right or wrong. For me, it was like, this is my time to have fun. Trash talk with my uncle, who we don't see that very often. It was, to me, that's level fun. That's his fun too. So we're going back and forth.
Oh yeah.
So my chill mode was when we're watching a game. That's when I was having conversations with people, real chill, laid back kind of thing. But when we're actually doing something, that was like, just, you know what I mean? It keeps it interesting, keeps it fun, and then it almost created like a little mini spectacle because people wanted to see who's going to win now. It almost made everyone else around you invested.
Right. I totally off topic, and I apologize, but the competitiveness is that I had to figure out where did it come from.
Well, Uncle Dave's the same way. He's very, very competitive.
Yeah,
super.
In everything he does,
which is awesome. But where do you get that from? Because we talk about it being passed down. My dad he could care less. He doesn't compare himself to anybody. He's like, dude, you do your thing, and you can compete all day long. And not to say that he thinks in a mediocre fashion, but they're just two totally different people born into the same household with the same family, but there was an experience somewhere that changed the mindset.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, when people say that there's like adrenaline junkies or whatever like that, I equate it to the rush of winning, like that, the level of emotions that are running through your body. It's almost like addicting, and you just want to keep winning when you're comparing it to your losses. So in my mind, it was like, I don't like the way losing feels. Mm-hmm. I just want to win. Right. And then there it is. It's that rush that, boom, that turns a person into being competitive because I just want to win. I just want to win. I'm not saying I'm not one of those guys. Oh, winning is everything. I have a line. I have a whatever. Because once it gets beyond not having fun, to me, you're just it's
like
too
to
much
have
aggression.
that mental trophy.
Yeah, it's like in my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's a rush. Winning
Right.
is there's a rush to it, and it's kind of I guess it could be like an addicting kind of thing, and that's what I want to. Because to me, it feels better than losing. And I took a lot of losses in my life to know what it feels like to lose, and I will take a bunch in the future, but hopefully my wins will outweigh the losses. And to me, it's just a mentality. And once again, how you do one thing is how you do everything. How you saw me play Bago, that's how I'm doing a podcast. How you see me doing a podcast, that's how I'm at work. Everything's like I want to be the best. The Mercedes slogan, the best or nothing. They're going to be there. Who comes up with a slogan like that anyway? And what are they? One of the best, most, top notch when it comes to luxury automobiles. And they're one of the best because their slogan, that's how they live their life. That's how they're thinking. From the factory to the parking lot or sales lot where they're selling these things is the best or nothing. And it's just a mentality. Not that it's right or wrong. I could be totally wrong. I'm telling you, that's how I think. So, all right. So, kind of like going backwards, though. So, when we're talking about, pushing our kids, and Goose, you're kind of talking about you saw certain signs. You saw certain signs, obviously, that Ava was showing you. And now you're going to kind of, specifically, it was for this, for this softball dance kind of thing. How do you approach next year? Do you just never say softball ever again? Because she's still young, so maybe she can grow out of kind of that thing.
Yeah, well, obviously next year she's going to move up to the next level, so that's like something totally different. If it's on her, if she wants to continue to play softball, I'll support her, and I'll try to approach it differently. Like I'll push her to a sense where she's going to understand the game and have fun with it, not to try to push her to and me get frustrated. You know what I mean? Just push her for her to enjoy it, not to push her and try to make her work at it 24/7 and still find out that's not her thing.
Yeah. And this all ties into being the mediocre thing. How do you guys feel as parents where, these organizations are coming up with there's no one wins or loses?
I think it's stupid. You need to show these kids. I don't know. That's my opinion. I think that, oh, no, the game's a tie. What do you mean the game's a tie? You need to show these kids that you need to win some and lose some, and that's how the world goes. Because you're going to go out there in real life, and you're not going to tie everything.
Yeah. You're going to lose and you're going to be crushed.
Yeah, it's complete crushing.
You're going to be heartbroken.
Yeah, but where's the tie?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So
and they have to know or learn that not everything's equal. That's
Right,
what they're
exactly.
teaching. Everything's equal. Oh, that's what sports are. It's competitive, so they have to
Right.
learn at a young age
And that's
to compete.
with
Not good.
with Bella is the same way. She plays softball, and she was getting frustrated when the coach sat her because in her head she thinks she's an all-star, and she plays her positions well. She plays second base and she's well, and she gets frustrated going out to right field or left field, even center field. And I try to explain to her, I was like, listen, every position out in the field is important because if the ball gets hit out to the field, who's getting that? You are. The ball is in the field, you're getting that. So I try to explain that to her, but she doesn't see it that way. She's, she's got this one-track mind that she's an all-star, and I didn't knock her for that. I want her to think that she's good at what she does because she's really good at it. But again, it goes to the coaches where, we have to give everyone a chance to play. And my kid doesn't understand that. She thinks, well, she stinks, and she, booing her down. And it's like, I understand you got to give them that time because they're not in the high school level yet. They're still in the minors or whatever, but she thinks it's unfair when they put someone else in her position.
That's also touching barriers of being a teammate too.
Yeah.
There's a role for everyone, but you also have to understand this is a team effort. There is a difference between individual sports, team sports, individual activities, and team activities. Like Manny, you guys had CJ playing the piano and stuff like that. So where did that go? How did that even come about? What made you want to introduce an instrument to your child and kind of talk about the process and how it went and kind of when you guys came home from the lessons and what was talked about?
Well, it came about because my wife read something that people who play the piano actually think I don't know, in a different way, or I don't know. They have a higher level of thinking. If you could
Okay.
if you could play the piano, essentially you could play any instrument.
Okay.
I believe is what she read or was told or whatever the case is. And then it's kind of started from there. Just, he showed an interest, and it was just, we had a friend who said, let's see, can you teach him the piano? And it started off, and he enjoyed it. And he liked it for maybe 4 or 5. We got to halfway through the introduction of the book, and after middle C, and his fingers couldn't do it, and he couldn't do it. The first couple were wins, but after that, they started to become, I would say, losses, because he became frustrated. He couldn't get it, he couldn't do it, and they were tough for me, because now here I am thinking, well, you have to do it as best you can. He was giving up because he wasn't understanding it. Well, you got to do it. If you're here, let's not waste time. Let's try to do it. Now, again, he was 4 or 5 at that time. But that was kind of the process. We let him do it until literally he said, Dad, he's like, I just don't want to do it anymore. And as a parent, what is the balance?
It's tough.
We took him. I knew it was a problem when I left the last couple of times. I was emotionally spent. I was ready for a beer, because it was just, I'm trying to push him and get him to focus, where it was just like, forcing a square peg into a round hole. It just wasn't going to happen. So we pushed him as far as we could take him. And then finally he kind of made the decision to be like, he didn't really make the decision, but he's like, I just don't want to do it anymore. And we didn't force him to do it anymore. Yeah. And that was kind of it. It kind of fizzled out. I mean, he's brought it up. He's like, I'd love to go play the piano again here and there, but.
So he has brought it up.
He's brought it up, but he's only brought it up because it was funny, because one of his friends kind of started at the same exact time. And he still plays till this day, 2-3 years later. He's very good at it.
And I saw he was like doing recitals.
He's doing recitals, and he's doing very well. And anytime that it comes up is when a Facebook post comes up, and my son sees that and says, oh yeah, I can go back and play the piano. Because he hears like, and meanwhile he was like, dong, dong. So that's what he remembers himself playing. Right. So I think there's a little bit of competitiveness there for him, which is cool for me to see, but it's like, I'm not wasting my time there. Yeah. But that's his son started off well. My friend's son started off very well, and then kind of continued on. My son started off well, and then kind of trailed off, and it fizzled. So that was kind of the process.
Yeah. So all right. So on the other spectrum, going to Gabe, I know you're not huge into sports or whatever. So how did that pan out for you in your childhood, where you did they sign you up? Did your parents sign you up for sports, or was it just something you already knew you weren't going to do, or how'd that pan out?
No, I actually never did much like extracurricular sports in school and stuff like that too. Like, I mean, but the funny thing is too, is that around the house, I always said, I grew up playing video games and stuff like that. We actually had like little, like we played like Tetris against each other and stuff like that. So we did like high scores and stuff. So we had like little mini competitions amongst like my mom, dad, and like sisters and stuff. So like growing up, they all play kind of video games, like the basic NES stuff, and we always we play like puzzle stuff together. So we did stuff together, but it wasn't really sports wise. So it was like, I mean, and that's where like I guess I gained my love for that. And but like I'll even go online, like now, like I'll play like random like Street Fighter or something like that online. So I'll do stuff like that, but I've never been inclined for sports and stuff like that. I was never pushed for it to either. It's not very been much of an interest either in terms of stuff like that. But I mean,
well, do you get pissed when you lose or what?
Oh, of course. I mean, if you ever see me in my room playing games, you'll think I'm a totally different person.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You're that guy.
Yeah, you got to record yourself, man. That'd be fantastic.
Has to buy multiple controllers because he snaps them in half.
I've broken one, but fortunately only one in like I don't know how many years now. But
yeah, I mean, so it still makes me want to think that it kind of tails back into when we're talking about overcoming mediocrity. It really is overcoming your own boundaries, overcoming your own definition of whatever you define mediocrity is, and also what activity we're talking about, right? When it comes to mediocrity as into a financial sense, when it talks about relationships, spiritually, whatever. It's kind of how whatever we define it, and then going based off that. It's kind of, like a mentality, I think, and an outcome, all in regards as to what you are trying to do in life. Yeah. There's some people who just literally doesn't give 2 cares about sports, or 2 cares about music and being the best video gamer or whatever. To be honest with you, you put me in a what's it called? I'm gonna be competitive just because I'm competitive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it has nothing to do with the video games.
Yeah.
Which is strange. Now that you think about it, it's kind of still going back to what Manny's saying, which is it's kind of absurd. But I think it's just because I enjoy winning.
Yeah.
I like the rush.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Because when you even like if I play like regular single player games stuff, that even when you don't feel like you're doing it properly and stuff like that, you still get frustrated and you still want to continue and accomplish whatever you're supposed to be doing. So it's still like a little bit competitive within among yourself, because even there's a lot of games where you just set high scores and you just want to keep breaking those scores, and so it's kind of like you set almost like your own high bars of stuff like that too.
Yeah, and we talk about it being a mindset, but also being something that is outwardly, I guess, or we talk about an outcome, right?
Yeah.
So my wife was a Division I basketball player. She's uber competitive, but outwardly you would never know.
Yeah.
So I mean, I always go back to the she made a basket to tie a game versus a nationally ranked opponent, and she got fouled while doing it, made the basket, and she turned around and just went like gave a little mini fist pump. Meanwhile, I'm behind the bench like like I'm screaming like so. But for her, that was her that's her being competitive and kind of pushing through the whole mediocrity thing. But it's the outcome where people see she's struggling for it. Where you and Uncle you and Uncle Dave will scream, "Whoa!" So you can visually see it.
competitive,
right? Where she's more internal, and you'd never know. So the outcome might be different just by looking at the two.
That kind of goes into what we're talking about: LeBron James versus Stephen Curry. They're saying he's just like like the silent threat kind of thing. He doesn't really say much. He's kind of or Stephen Curry I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And LeBron James is very vocal in his leadership, and they keep going back to the same thing. There's no right or wrong way.
Yep.
None of them are wrong for what they're doing. It's just how they both want to win, and it's exactly how they express themselves, just how it is.
Yeah.
Some people are just you have your introverts, you have your extroverts, or whatever it is. Kind of switching things up, and this has to do with overcoming mediocrity and kind of being average. It's kind of like relationship advice. I know it's kind of like a weird thing, kind of different than what we normally talk about, but this is our "What Would You Do" segment. And I want to ask you guys, what advice do you give someone who's looking to settle for a relationship, knowing that they'll be unhappy, but their argument is that at least they won't be lonely?
Well, I can kind of speak on this personally, because like years ago I was a long-term relationship. It was like when I started college, I was with the girl for like 5 years, whatever it was. We did talk like long-term stuff, whatever. It was always up and down. We broke up a couple times, blah, blah, blah. Towards the end there, I know I was totally unhappy. I'm sure she probably was too, even she probably didn't want to admit it. But my mentality was at that point, because we talked about, like I said, we talked about marriage and stuff like that, and like I was maybe begrudgingly actually going to do it. I mean, I was actually younger and like coming off of like high school. I didn't have self-confidence, a lot of stuff like that. So I was like, it's kind of just like, it was really my first real long-term relationship. So just kind of, going through, and I assumed, I did care about her and everything, but it was like at the end there, I don't know how we even came to a conclusion, but I knew in my own mind that even if I was going to be quote unquote unhappy, I'd rather do it by myself than go through the motions with somebody who I'm unhappy with. So I'd rather, deal with my own issues and, gain a better perspective on myself, as opposed to maybe stringing somebody else along that, even if, I don't know if she was on the same level at the time anyway, but I'd rather do that by my own and not have somebody else with there that most likely we're probably going to gain to, hate each other eventually, most likely.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the whole lonely thing, if that does happen, you become quote unquote lonely, oh man, I think that's a really good time to, not to sound cheesy or anything, but to find yourself. It's a perfect time to really think about what you actually want. There's no need for someone to be in a chosen forced relationship just because they don't want to be lonely.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
There's a lot of people out there, male or female, that you can find that will suit your needs. The problem is we want everything to fit our beautiful, perfectly put together timeline in life, that nothing like that ever happens. This doesn't even have to be relationships. This could be career advice where we're totally struggling. Like, man, we're not where I want to be. You know what? Screw it. I'm not going to go, take extra classes or go for my MBA because I'm just going to stay here. What's the point kind of thing? Where going back to this is mediocrity again, just settling, just being average, taking the road of less resistance just because it's comfortable.
Yeah.
At some almost that's kind of disgusting level that you're just with somebody because you don't want to be lonely in a weird, horrible, selfish way.
Well, I mean, don't ever look for a companion to kind of solidify or make you more stable. You should be able to bring something to the relationship. No successful relationship is built on you complete. Like, you might complete somebody, but you're my life. That, to me, that would never, ever work out. You have to have something. You got to bring something to the table.
Self-worth.
Yeah,
too,
absolutely. So, Jim, to kind of piggyback off what you're saying, absolutely, go find yourself.
Yeah.
You can't make somebody else happy unless you're happy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not possible. And life's too short. Go find something fun. You're only here for a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Don't waste your time being miserable.
And I do feel like there's someone out there that's gonna fill those voids for you. Whatever you're strong at, they may be weak at. Whatever you're weak at, they're gonna be strong at.
Sure.
And I think it has to happen in that natural way.
Yeah.
A lot of times people are forced to be with the person that they went to prom with in high school, and then that's the end of that. It was like you definitely didn't explore options. You're clearly 17, 16 years old,
Right.
and there's a lot of stuff going on. This is anyway for the person that feels like they have to be in this relationship based off being lonely is the other result. That's not the other result. Maybe you need to be alone.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
We like to point the fingers as a natural thing, but maybe you're the problem.
Right.
You know what I mean? Maybe it's you that you literally need to know what you want, because at that point, no matter who comes in your life, you're not going to be happy. You're not going to be satisfied, because if you're not happy yourself, what is the point? You're just going to make someone else miserable and drag them in your deep hole.
Absolutely.
And I guess you can't quote unquote complete somebody else if you haven't completed yourself.
That's what I said. Yeah, and that's what I mean. It's a disgusting, selfish thing.
Yeah.
Because in some weird way, you're
constantly looking for something to avoid to fill.
Yeah, and it's a brutal cover up of emotions and just garbage. And that's why I say just go find yourself.
Yeah.
Because then you
Do
know
a self-check.
exactly.
Yeah, they're just putting themselves in a position to fill their emptiness.
Yeah, and that's bizarre. And like, yeah. So wrapping things up, talking about overcoming mediocrity. So obviously, there's going to be some things that you're going to be mediocre in, quote unquote mediocre, whatever that's defined as. But it's the level of excellence you're giving and the effort that's important. That, to me, if you land on being mediocre, that's fine if you gave it all you had.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Because
Yep,
I know
absolutely.
for darn well I'm not going to be the professional basketball player I aspired to be when I was 4. But I gave my effort. It is what it is. That's just not my thing. It will never be my thing. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with just being, he's an average street ball player. I'm fine, absolutely fine with that. So you got to pick and choose your battles. What do you want to be excellent at? That's what you should be questioning yourself. Forget the mediocre stuff. What are you going to be great at? What are you naturally inclined to do? What are your natural talents? And go with that. Find your strengths and sharpen them. Don't look at your weaknesses and be down on yourself for something that you're not that good at when you have plenty. I believe, seriously, every person out in the world has a strength that they could just sharpen and be the best at and become great and become the best version of whatever in the world that is. And it switches your mindset from settling to something in a realistic way. It's because it's based off your actual effort. And all right, so I came up with this kind of like this weird saying in my mind, kind of talking about being in your comfort level or whatever. Mm-hmm. The path of least resistance pays minimum wage, and the path less chosen has the potential to pay you unlimited wealth residually forever. So if you kind of look at it that way, I'm not trying to say like everyone go out there and have a hard life, knock yourself out, but the rewards are different.
Yeah.
And then it obviously should be towards something that you have that natural inclination towards. Because someone once told me not to bite off more than I could chew, and I said I'd rather choke on greatness than nibble on mediocrity. And that was a quote by someone unknown. And that's also something that, I wrote in my notes here, but it's something that sticks in my mind that mediocrity is how we define it, but at the same time, shoot for greatness. And you will never be disappointed in yourself. So how we like to wrap up our episodes is by quotes. And today, for this episode, number 12, Overcoming Mediocrity, we have a quote by Peter Scott and the late, great Nelson Mandela. We'll start it off with Peter Scott. I've always believed the greater danger is not aiming too high, but too low, settling for a bogey rather than shooting for an eagle. So all my golfers out there, that was for you. Obviously, a bogey is worse than an eagle. An eagle is absolutely amazing. So anyway, now by Nelson Mandela, there is no passion to be found playing small, in settling for a life that is less than the one you are capable of living. It's kind of, we're going back to being the coach and pushing our kids because we know the potential that they actually have. All right, so thank you for listening to episode number 12, Overcoming Mediocrity. In this episode, we discuss setting high expectations, pushing our kids to be greater, settling for an average life, the path of least resistance, and the mediocrity mindset. We wrap this episode up with quotes from Peter Scott and the late, great Nelson Mandela. Awesome. Guys, thanks again for joining us. The Rotated Views podcast was produced for self-development purposes. Huge shout out to our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by the Blessed Lifestyle brand. That is BL3SSED.com. Also sponsored by The Motivation Files Unleashed. This motivational mixtape will be your fuel for success. Available on all platforms. Guys, don't forget to visit the website, JimmyLeeVelez.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Rotated Views. If you have any inquiries or questions, email us at info@JimmyLeeVelez.com. On behalf of myself and the rest of the crew, we wish you massive success. Stay blessed.